So, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, my name is Richard Webb. I'm one of the lecturers at Hope. Specifically, I'm a lecturer in clinical nutrition, but I'm not the only one. There's a few others there as well in our department. It's a small team, but we've got on the top left there, we've got Dr. Farzad Amir Abdollahan, who's a associate professor and the head of our department. Farzad's got a wealth of expertise in different areas, but predominantly around zinc. He did a lot of research into micronutrients, but specifically zinc or zinc inadequacy. He's also a public health nutritionist, so he's got a lot of expertise in that area as well. Then on the bottom left there, you'll see Grace, Dr. Grace Farhat. Grace is again similar to Farzad, a lot of expertise, but in many different areas. So Grace's interests are predominantly with antioxidants. She's done a lot of work on chocolate and the antioxidant capacity of different chocolates. She also has an interest in sweeteners and other non-nutritive sweeteners. Then we've got Dr. Claire MacDonald-Clark on the bottom right there. Claire has, again, different experience. Claire's interests really lie with nutrition in the life cycle, particularly in young adults. She also has an interest in the elderly, and she's done a lot of work on bone health in particular. Then in the centre, we've got Leo, Dr. Leo Stevenson. Leo is a nutritionist, but his background is more along the lines of food science. So Leo's got many years experience working in academia and industry, doing all kinds of things like product development, all the way through to academic research, but mainly around food rather than nutrition. And then on the top right, there's myself. And as I say, my interests lie in a little bit more of a clinical arena. So I'm interested in diabetes and in particular lipid metabolism. So you have these fats which float around your blood. And I'm kind of interested in finding out their links with cardiovascular risk and developing lab methods to analyse them in a bit more detail. So you'll see between the lot of us, we've got quite a varied range of experience, which comes together quite well. Now that was the core nutrition team, so that will be the people who you predominantly would deal with. But we've got other colleagues who contribute to the programme as well. So we've got Dr. Matthew Jackson there at the top. Now Matthew's a sports scientist by trade, and he lectures on some of the human science type sessions. We've also got Dr. Denise Roche below, who's similar to Matt. Denise is also a sports scientist who also lectures on some of that human biology type material. We've also got Jeremy Cogley. Jeremy lectures on quite a lot of the bioscience courses, but he also lectures for us. He's got a really good understanding of biochemistry and metabolism, and lectures on a lot of that material. Also got Lucy Evans. Lucy works at a private company in Liverpool, but she's a specialist in renal care. And now Lucy comes in to deliver a few of these sessions, particularly those around the kidney and kidney disease. And at the bottom, we got Mark Saunders, who's Mark is our resident in-house careers advisor, who does a great job of supporting students and guiding them to get the career and the job that they really want. And below that, finally, we've got Mr. Matthew Adams. Matthew's our point of contact for the library services. So if we need anything library related, Matthew's the man to see. And we've got two faces there on the side. We've got Kate Mooney and Luke O'Brien, or now these are, as of last week, Dr. Kate Mooney and Dr. Luke O'Brien. They were PhD students with us who've literally graduated over the last few weeks and passed their PhD viva or examination. So they, although are likely to be moving on to different things, are still affiliated with us and help. So that's the team in general. But what about what about what we have to offer? Well, you can see there at the top, we've got a couple of undergraduate provisions. We've got a BSc Nutrition and a BSc or an MSci Clinical Nutrition. And that's what the team I've just described would deliver in terms of the nutrition elements, but it's not the only thing that's going on in our department. You'll see in the school, we've also got below there some of the other stuff that you might be interested in. So the BSc Applied Biomedical Health, in particular the sport and exercise science, sport and physical education, sports rehab and sports psychology. Now these are lectured by the core nutrition team, but they are occurring in the same facility. Now can I ask as well, Ariana, have you been to Hope before? Or
No, I haven't. I've been to like around Liverpool, but not to the university.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind as we go on then, because it's a absolutely beautiful campus. You know, it's a real shame I'm not meeting you in person, because I'd normally, you know, show you around and stuff, but it's just unfortunate. And you'd probably have a better understanding if you're in the health science building of how all this stuff kind of comes together as well. We have a floor which is mainly sports related, and then upstairs we have another floor which is mainly biomedical science and nutrition related. So it's in the same building. It's literally on the, you know, same floor, on the same building rather. So what facilities do we have specifically? Well, within the health science building, we've got nutrition labs, physiology labs downstairs, which you'd probably be interested in if you were interested in sport. Also health science labs, which are more for our biology students, but nutrition use them as well. And specifically with regards to nutrition, now you can see we've got a food research and development laboratory, which is really great. We're really lucky to have this. It's a beautiful facility. It's made to industrial standards using, you can see there the hood, the extractor fan. These are the types you find in industry. And it's a really nice space. You can see you can fit quite a lot of students quite comfortably in there. And these guys aren't, you know, all crushed up or anything. We generally only have small class sizes as well at Hope. So you probably won't be in with, you know, lots and lots of people. We've also got facilities. You can see the stove top nearest to us. There's a little handle on there which enables it to rise up and down for disabled students if need be. So it's all kitted out for to be inclusive for everyone really. It's a great facility, and you can see this student here who's actually performing some work in there. And this task is actually one of the first year tasks, what we ask students to do, and it's to reformulate a certain meal. So you may have a meal, it could be spaghetti bolognese, for example, and you have to reduce maybe the saturated fat content, or maybe even the sugar content if you're using it out of a jar, and we have to try and test it to see can people tell the difference, etc. So that's what this particular student's up to. And we also have clinical labs. So these are a number of pieces of equipment in. You can see here we've got everything from bioimpedance machines. These are the type which you may find in your local gym, which give you an idea of your body composition. But we've got slightly more advanced pieces as well. So we've got here Quark. Now Quark is a machine to determine your resting energy expenditure. So basically the amount of energy you're expending at rest. Usually find these type of piece of equipment in hospitals, etc. So we're really lucky to have one. We've also got a Bob Pod, which is, I showed you before, the bioimpedance machine, and it gives you an idea of your body composition, but this is a little bit more advanced, a little bit more sophisticated. It looks pretty cool as well. But then finally, we've got a DEXA as well, if you're interested in body composition. This is actually the gold standard method of measuring body composition. It's the best method to date of doing that. Plus, you can also use it for other fancy things like determining bone mineral density, etc. So we've gone all the way from the bioimpedance machines that you may find at your local gym to something which is actually quite sophisticated, which you typically find in maybe a hospital. And students can use these pieces of equipment depending on the projects, and providing you're obviously trained. You know, you can use some of these measures depending on the projects that you're actually working on. So nutrition. What about the program itself? Well, the aim of what we're trying to achieve, I suppose, in a nutshell, is to develop the knowledge and understanding and skills that nutritionists will require to practice, whether that's in industry or freelancing. We'd want you to, study a number of core competencies, they're called, and these are laid out by the AFN, or the Association for Nutrition. And we're actually, as you'll see in a few minutes, we're actually accredited by this association as well. So our BSc nutrition program is an associated course. And the core competences we focus on are nutritional science, food chain, social and behavioural sciences, and health and well-being, and finally professional conduct. And ultimately, we would like it, if you do one of our nutrition programs, is to be able to leave and be ready to apply to be a registered associate nutritionist. And you can use this, the ANUTRA, which is in brackets there after your name, providing you submit a portfolio of evidence, or if you do our BSc nutrition program, you can apply directly without having to go through the hassle of making the portfolio. And as I said before, our BSc nutrition program, I need to emphasize, it's only our BSc nutrition program has been officially accredited by the Association for Nutrition. And it's this which allows you direct entry to the AFN register when you leave, providing you complete all assignments. So let me talk to you for a couple of minutes about how the course is structured as well. So we've got our single honours BSc nutrition program, as you can see on the left hand side of this diagram. And this is the one which is accredited by the AFN, the BSc nutrition one. Or you can study for clinical nutrition and apply via the portfolio route. Now, what both of these courses will ask you to do is complete 180 credits in nutrition, and then 180 credits in human science and food science, or clinical at the end. Or you could decide to come to Hope also. Perhaps you're not too interested in doing pure nutrition. I know you mentioned at the beginning you're interested in sports as well. You could choose to do a combined honours. That would mean you would have to do 180 credits in nutrition and then 180 credits in another subject. So in your case, it may be sports, if you chose to do that. Some of the other options, in addition to sport, you might not be aware of, things like health and well-being, geography, psychology, education, dance. The lists are kind of endless, really. You can do a lot of combinations depending on what where your interests lie and what you want to achieve at the end. So, excuse me. How will this work in terms of through the years, though? Well, can you see my mouse moving, Ariana, as well?
Yeah, I can see it moving.
Great. I'll use this as a pointer then, so you can. That makes things a bit easier for me. So, okay, in your first year, you would do, if you were doing combined, so let's say for sake of argument, you were combining with sports, you would do introduction to human nutrition, and you do introduction to sport, maybe, and that would be 180 credits of each. You would also do in the second year, explorations in human nutrition and explorations in sport again. And then in your final year, you do advanced studies in nutrition and advanced studies in sport. That's if you were to combine. If, on the other hand, you decided you actually like the idea of doing the AFN accreditation and you're really passionate about nutrition and you wanted to do pure nutrition, this is what your kind of roadmap would look like. So in your first year, you do introduction to human nutrition again. On the right, you do introduction to human science. so no sport this time. You'd also do exploration in human nutrition in the second year, and an exploration in human science in the second year instead of the sport. And then the third year, you do advanced studies in human nutrition, but then instead of your advanced studies in sport this time, you'd either do, depending on what course you signed up for, whether it will be BSc Nutrition or BSc Clinical Nutrition, you would do advanced studies in food science or advanced studies in clinical nutrition. Does that kind of make sense so far? Because I know I'm going over this quite quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a question. Shall I ask it now or later?
No, it's fine. I think you'd be okay to ask it now if you want.
Okay, so as you were saying for the combined, because it's 180 credits for the nutrition and 180 credits for something else, would that be the same? Would it technically be sort of like the same amount of like work as if you did like a single honours?
Yes. So just say for instance you decided to do combined with sport, you would do 180 credits of sport rather than 180 credits of human science and all the rest of it. But in terms of workload, there would be different assignments, obviously. So I'm not too sure what the sports people would have set up for you, but it would be the equivalent workload in terms of like hours to do it and whatnot. But the actual assignments would obviously be very different.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
No problem. So I also should make you aware of another thing. So if you see on the top left there, we've got new programs. So our BSc Clinical Nutrition is actually a very new program. I've just skirted over it like it's been there for a while, but it actually hasn't. We only had our first year start last year with BSc Nutrition. So this year coming up will be our second year. And we offer it in a couple of different flavours. You can either do the BSc Clinical Nutrition as I've just described, 3 years, or you can choose to do it for 4 years. You can do clinical nutrition and you can add on an extra placement year. Or you can do it for 4 years and get an MSci, so we'll do a master's at the end as well. And it says here you would do, in terms of a placement, you would do that between your second and third year. But for the MSci, you would do that in your 4th year, and you would have to do another 120 credits worth of work, probably consistent of these elements as well. And it would just bump it up to an MSci, so you'd leave with a master's rather than a BSc. So there's options with the clinical nutrition as well. And if I was seeing you in person, I would certainly give you one of these leaflets, but I'm not. So I'm going to direct you to the website and suggest, if you want a bit more information about clinical nutrition, of course, ask me at the end. I'm happy to tell you anything. But if we get off this webinar and then later on or next week you want more information, I urge you just to look at the website where there's a lot more information in this leaflet. Or get in touch with me, which I'm going to give you my email address later as well. Okay, so I've talked about the courses, but I haven't given you much detail about what they consist of, so I'll do that now. So in your first year, you would do Introduction to Human Nutrition, as I said, and that will consist of a few topics. So you've got basic nutrition, physiology, biochemistry, macro, micronutrients, what's the difference, things like energy balance, food safety and hygiene, this type of thing. Then in the human science side, so if you decide to do single honours and just do BSc Nutrition, you would, as part of the human science element, look at things. This is more like hard science, I guess, so things like atoms and molecules, protein and lipid biochemistry, physiology, different systems within the body, and how they can dysfunction because of disease. You also develop a number of different laboratory methods and techniques in addition to just these core subjects. Now, these lead on really nicely to the second year, and it's kind of important that people have this basic foundation. Some of the stuff, depending on your background from the first year, you may come knowing small amounts of it already, but it's essential that everybody going into the second year builds upon that. So what we do on the nutrition side is this explorations of human nutrition. This consists of things like influencing factors such as socioeconomic elements, how to assess people, which is a real big part of being a nutritionist, the influence of genes on things like obesity, etc., and diabetes. So, you know, in your first year, we may study basic genetics, but then in the second year, we'll dig into that in a bit more detail. And also things like food enrichment and fortification. And over on the human science side, again, we dig into this in a bit more detail again. So epidemiology, so this is looking at the incidence of things like disease in different populations. Biochemistry, we look at that in more detail. And also genetics again, but in further detail. So it's building upon the first year. And then in the final year, on the nutrition side, we typically would look, it becomes a little bit more broader and you would be expected to work more independently. But some of the topics you'll cover will be things like this. So physical activity and sport, public health, nutrition, food choice and behavior. So these are more kind of generic, but aspects which allow you to almost specialize in certain areas. You've also got to undertake an applied research project at the end as well. This is usually a form of a dissertation if it's a single honours student, or a project if it's a combined. And then you'd also be asked to do this advanced studies in food science. And this includes, I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of the stuff Leo takes care of. So things like food technology, sensory evaluation, new product development. And this really primes people for, you know, a job in industry perhaps. And then over on the clinical nutrition side, if you chose to do this, you would look further at things like disease states predominantly, so diabetes, obesity, cardiometabolic risks. These are all really pressing topics, which current pressing topics, which revolve around problems that need solving within society typically. And again, it says there students will undertake an applied research project. If you're doing single honours, BSc or BSc clinical nutrition, you just do one dissertation. If you're doing combined, it could be 2 projects perhaps. So I think I've gone quite a bit about the actual, you know, the formal stuff, but in addition to developing your knowledge in these areas, what other skills are you going to get? Well, certainly scientific research skills. By the end of your degree, you will certainly know how to carry out a research project. Also laboratory and field techniques, report writing, which is important, not just in academia, but outside as well. Similarly, independent and teamwork, how to analyze data, communication skills, and I suppose the bottom 2 are a branch off of those, so writing skills and oral skills. And these will all be developed along those 3 or possibly 4 years. And university isn't just about studying, although the bulk of it is. My own experience is about growing as a person as well as academically, and Hope has many opportunities for this. So we've got here team building. Now, every student, we have another campus in North Wales called Cardigan, and every first year student, regardless of subject, is asked to go. Some people may be a little bit nervous about this, but indeed I was in my first year. I've only been at Hope for a year and 8 months, and I went in my first year, It was, I have to say, probably one of the best experiences I've ever done. It was great, really, really good. We all had a really good time. It's a great opportunity for people to get to know one another, great opportunity for people to get to know the tutors, and it's something which I don't see any other university offering, which is a real shame. But we really do place a lot of emphasis on, you know, getting to know your peers and getting to know, you know, us as well. But in addition to that, we also offer some work experience opportunities. So we offer these as and where we can. So an example was Siobhan here, who went actually to Purdue University in the USA to carry out a research project, performing a nutritional intervention. But there's also Alison here, who stayed a little close to home and got a placement at Aintree Hospital in the dietetics department. And I'm not going to read the whole quotation out, but Alison had an amazing time, and you know, she because of her hard work, you know, other students are now welcomed. So really good. There's also some field trips that you'll be asked to partake on the course as well. These are quite wide ranging, so there could be everything from a food bank to you know, I took some students, for example, last year to a cell culture laboratory. These students in the picture were off to a bakery. So we tried to put on a number of different field trips at varied organisations. And where possible, we also tried to do quite a lot of work in the community as well. I mentioned that first year project earlier on in the food laboratory kitchens, where students have to reformulate a product or a meal. And in some cases, some students are asked to actually present these back to the public themselves, the people who may be on the receiving end of these interventions, to gauge their thoughts and get their opinions. I think it's really important to not just do things in the classroom, but also try to take them to the people that, you know, may benefit from them. And then study days. So the Association for Nutrition, whose competencies I've mentioned that we adhere to, also put on a number of study days each year in the Northwest area. Now we take this very seriously, and we actually host this. It goes around in like a, you know, like a roster type basis, and we host this when it comes around to our term. But when it's not our term, it's at another institute, we ask students to come along with us as staff, and we encourage everyone to go, not just you know, to get to know one another, but also to get to know other people studying nutrition in the Northwest area, which I think is really important. And there's Fars up there, I think, doing a talk. I mentioned at the beginning on the first slide about our research interests. These are quite wide ranging, and we try, particularly within the later years, to incorporate students within our research interests. If, you know, perhaps, for example, with dissertation projects, etc. And we like to try and go one step further than that as well, providing the projects are, you know, up to standard. A number of students have had their work presented at nationwide nutrition conferences, which is a really great opportunity to get to know leaders in the field and to get your work out there, you know, and come along with us to these conferences. And indeed, there's a number of abstracts at conferences accepted for the Nutrition Society conference, which was held a few years ago, and we've had abstracts accepted at conferences thereafter as well. And there's Farzad there on the final day with some proud students. So what about if you want to go a little bit further afield? So the stuff I've mentioned is kind of in the local area, but there's international opportunities as well. So we've got a study abroad scheme at Liverpool Hope, where students can partner up, go to a partner institute in the USA or India, etc. We've also got Global Hope, which is an initiative I'm actually hoping to get onto this year. It's not happening for obvious reasons, but next year maybe I'm hoping it works, because this is a great opportunity. It enables students and staff as well to go to an overseas partner institute where they can volunteer. It could be to teach, it could be to help out for a number of weeks over the summer. Really great opportunity. There's also got, oh, I didn't mean to press that then. We've also got the Service and Leadership Awards, or the SALA Awards. This is really, really great. This enables students to build up a profile over a number of years through volunteering projects, etc., and then leave with this award, which looks great on the CV for potential employers, etc. Now, I showed you a quote a few minutes ago. I'm not going to show you, you know, quote after quote, or I'm also not going to read through this either. But this is Danielle, who was a research assistant with us. Now, I'm again not going to ask you to read it, but if you just take away some of the bold words in bold, I think this sums us up quite well. So we've got community there. I think, if anything, I'd like you to, if you could take on anything today, I'd like you to take on that we're a community at Hope. I think we're a small institute. Everybody kind of knows each other. It's very supportive for students. And it's just a really nice place to be, as I'm sure Karenza will, you know, contribute to later as well. So what do our graduates do? Well, there's a number of different career paths. So the first one could be maybe doing a master's, some postgraduate study, or maybe even a PhD if you know, the individual enjoyed it and really wanted to specialize in something. Healthcare, there's openings for nutritionists for the NHS and similar. Also health promotion. People forget that nutrition is an in-demand subject for many governmental organisations, Public Health England, etc. Really need nutritionists. There's also the leisure industry, and also education. And so if you wanted to get into teaching or being some sort of advocate, nutrition could help you. Also nutrition careers, so that could be your own career, maybe a self-employed nutritionist, etc. Or in the food industry. Now, this is a sector where there's a great deal of interest from many students who want to get into working with actual food, whether that's working as a product developer for a big chain like Marks and Spencer's, someone like that, or even a smaller company. Nutritionists and food scientists are definitely in demand. And another quote here, we've got Susan Whittam, was a lady who's gone on to become a community nutritionist for the NHS. You know, and again, I mentioned before that we've got something special at Hope in terms of our surroundings and environment, and the community feel is like something, I agree with Suzanne, that I've never really experienced at any other institute. It's just a real shame that this COVID thing's happened. You're not actually on an open day with us in person, but I'd like to thank you anyway for listening to the Zoom presentation. It's not ideal, but I hope I've answered some of your questions, and if not, please fire away. I'm happy to, you know, answer anything that you've got. And Karenz is also here as well. If you've got anything student-led, anything from that side of things, you know, as a team, we're both here to help you.